As the NHS misses its long-term plan deadline to cut the number of people with learning disabilities and autistic people in psychiatric units, we ask if they have been measuring the wrong thing all along.
Hi everybody, welcome to this episode of Rightful Lives. We're here to discuss bed numbers. Do we need a reduction of bed numbers in mental health inpatient hospitals? Is that what we're all sort of rooting for? And I guess we'll also touch on the Mental Health Act and whether it's right in some ways to take it out, and will that actually have an impact on reducing bed numbers? So my name's Alexis Quinn. I'm a member of Rightful Lives, along with Julie Newcombe and Dawn Cavanagh. If you want to introduce yourselves, Julie.
Yeah, Julie Newcombe from Rightful Lives. I'm a mum to a young man called Jamie, who is autistic, has learning disabilities, had a torrid time in the inpatient system, but is now leading an excellent life in the community. In fact, I'm in his house now, and he's gone out.
She's stealing his internet.
I'm stealing his internet.
Hi, my name is Dawn Cavanagh. Yes, I'm a member of Rightful Lives, and I have a son called Jack, who is 21, and he is currently detained in a hospital.
Thanks, Dawn. So bed numbers, do we need more? Do we need less? Why are we counting them? Julie, over to you. Why is this important right now?
Well, right now we've got March marks the end of the deadline for the NHS England long-term plan reduction in bed numbers by 50%, and it's been missed, categorically been missed by quite some way. I think it's been estimated that it won't be attained at the current rate until 2029, I think, for many years hence anyway. So the plan to reduce the number of people in hospital has failed. But what we've been thinking about is, how can you reduce the number of people in hospital and bed numbers if you're not putting the right care in the community in place first? And is it valid to measure bed numbers, and what could we be measuring instead? So I think maybe the first thing we're going to talk about is what happens if we take away learning disability and autism beds without the right support in the community. And I know Dawn's got a bit of a view on that.
Yes, so in the area where I live, they have actually merged learning disability and mental health inpatient provision. And what that has meant is that learning disability inpatient provision has gone, basically. Those services have gone, and people with learning disabilities are now having to use mainstream mental health inpatient provision. And I wasn't a fan of that when they proposed it, and I certainly am not now. The idea was that mental health nurses could be trained in learning disability. But I think one of the things that I didn't quite foresee was the criminalisation of people with learning disabilities and or autism.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm in the community, Dawn, now, as you know, like at the moment, and if I have an autistic meltdown and there's no beds to go to, mental health beds, I just think, what's going to happen to me? I don't have a severe learning disability, so there's going to be part of the learning disability and autism community where that criminalisation, there won't be, sufficient understanding or an understanding of justification, and it will have really life-limiting, consequences. So I don't think any of us here are suggesting that autistic people should be in hospital and that we love hospital beds, because all of us hate it and we think it's abhorrent and it's awful. But if we are in the community, and we're exhibiting distress because the right care and treatment isn't in place and the right support isn't in place, the question is, what happens to those people? And I think people will either die by suicide, die by accident, be detained to mental health beds, like Dawn's saying, where there's a focus on recovery from what? An increase in criminalisation in hospital or in the community, and people go straight to jail. If you're not mad, you're bad. And so, Julie, what should we be measuring instead? You're on mute. I had to mute you because you were affecting the sound quality. Oh, the power I've got.
Far too much power. One of these days you'll turn into a commissioner with all this power. Anyway, so look, measuring bed numbers is, I think, an easy way of not solving the problem, basically. And I know that we even to start with, the bed numbers that we're measuring, the Chummy transformation data set, isn't even reliable. The MH data set is going to give a much better indication of the numbers of autistic people and people with learning disabilities who've spent time in hospital. And so we're even not even starting with accurate numbers. So, but I know if I were an ICB lead, I think I'd want a lot more information about what I'm spending taxpayers' money on. And I think, you know, you'd be wanting to really drill down into this to look at what's happening in 3 stages, really. Early intervention, so for children and young people, prevention of crisis, and what is the situation for people who actually are in hospital. And there's so many ways you could measure that. You could look at the number of EHCPs, you could look at the number of tribunals, perhaps more accurately. Express that as a percentage of the autistic and learning disability population. Look at average waiting lists for diagnoses and EHCPs, etc. Look at school exclusions. Lots of things to look at there, and they're just a few ideas. I want to know what the investment is in housing and the workforce, you know, and have we got occupational health, speech and language therapy, LD nursing, and what are we spending on that? What are we spending on support? Do we have 24/7 crisis support? Have we actually got somewhere people can go 24 hours of the day? And if people have got to the point where they're in hospital, how many are in hospital? Why are they there? And is there a discharge plan? And I want to know what the CQC reports are saying about the hospitals. What percentage of those hospitals are coming up as requires improvement or inadequate? I mean, the whole point of this is to understand a person's journey through the system. And we have to remember, you know, the Building the Right Support Delivery Board commissioned a report from Red Quadrant because we needed to know that how we could monitor expenditure nationwide on autism and learning disabilities. And they were highly critical of the fact that we can't do that. And one thing that was recommended as a result was the development of a new system that would look at sort of seeing how much money is being spent on autism and learning disabilities. And I think if you're going to build a new system like that, you need to build in the monitoring of key performance indicators as part of that, and some of the stuff that I've just suggested. And perhaps, you know, now's the time to do that. Get some people involved who can help with designing some key indicators that would help monitor what's really going on, what's really happening, not just in terms of the number of people in hospital, but the people who aren't in hospital, and how's that going for them? How many CTRs, for example, and that sort of data. So yeah, I mean, there's no point monitoring bed numbers, and there's no point in taking autism and learning disability out of the Mental Health Act unless you have got the community care right in the first place.
Thanks, Julie. And Dawn.
I was just going to add that I think it's really important to look at readmissions as well, because that gives you a sense of whether you're failing or not, doesn't it?
Definitely. Good point.
And talking about failing, I think we need to monitor, you know, and measure and publish, you know, the number of autistic people and people with learning disabilities dying by suicide and in contact with the criminal justice system. Because I can't find those figures for love nor money. But what we do know is that, you know, back when deinstitutionalization was happening, you know, back in the 80s, that there was a correlation between the beds that closed in the institutions and the number of prison beds that were then occupied by that population. So we just need to pay attention. So, you know, I don't want to ever go back into hospital. Julie, I know, you know, you'd never want that for Jamie, and Dawn, I know you're fighting like hell to get your son out. So we're not saying that we're like into hospital beds, but the picture is much broader than measuring the numbers of people that are currently detained. Anything else, ladies?
Yeah, I think we're just saying, is hospital getting to the point where it's the lesser of 3 evils, you know, being homeless or in prison or in hospital? Some choice, eh?
some choice. And on that cheery note, we will end this episode of thinking about hospital beds with Rightful Lives. Thank you, everybody.